Okay. Hi, my name's Nolan Monholland. Go ahead and introduce yourself, guys.
I'm Josh Schaefer.
And I'm Henry Ludwig.
And we're here to present for our AGR201 class on our cultural immersion presentation. First, we can discuss, I guess, what our subject was, and then go on to talk about why we decided to choose this topic. We decided to choose the topic of homelessness in the area that we happen to be residing. Um, I personally chose this topic because, well, being in Lafayette for the summer, it was a problem that I absolutely recognized every time I'd come into town or really just go anywhere in the greater Lafayette area. There's certainly a homeless population there. And also, it's something that I don't really see a lot back home, living out in the middle of nowhere, Indiana, rural. I mean, I'm sure there probably are homeless people, but without being in an urban area, you just don't see that. So it was something different that I had the opportunity to be a part of while I was on campus. But yeah, go ahead and share, you guys.
Yeah, so as I said, we chose homelessness. For me, chose this because where I'm at personally, I don't see a lot of homelessness because I'm in a town of 1,000 people, 800 people roughly. But if I go to like the closest urban area with for groceries, out to eat, whatever it may be, in Kankakee, you definitely can notice a lot of it, I think, is being so close to Chicago, about an hour south. A lot of people do make it down, and on the south side of Kankakee, you can definitely, you drive through town and you see just old, like abandoned buildings and just people living outside them, and or you'll see them outside the Walmart. So it's just something that I think everyone can relate to easy, and learn about different how homelessness is in their area.
Oh, okay. Sounds good.
Yeah, one of the reasons that I wanted to do this topic as well is because of how prevalent I think homelessness is in the Lafayette area, and then kind of like how almost radical and different it is compared to a lot of the like Purdue culture that's around there. So, right inside of West Lafayette and closer to Purdue's campus, you have the college life and atmosphere, and then almost immediately passing the bridge, you get to this completely different side of Lafayette that I don't think a lot of people really see and understand as much. And through a couple organizations of volunteering over there, I've been able to be exposed to it a little bit, and so I wanted to look into it a little bit more as far as what exactly some of the problems are.
Henry, so are you from Lafayette originally?
No, I'm from a little town outside of Indianapolis.
Oh, okay. So
yeah,
pretty rural and different area to an extent.
Yeah.
Okay. Great. Well, yeah, I guess we can discuss now what we decided to immerse ourselves in to complete this project and the experiences we gained from it. And say, I can go first in this area. More or less, my immersion activities and basically the project in general focused on making resources available or providing information so that resources were available for homeless people in the greater Lafayette area. I'd met with two people that were, I guess, working in Lafayette with different homeless organizations. One was Jennifer Shook and the other Adam Murphy. Jennifer Shook works with LTHC, Homeless Services in Lafayette, which is more or less like the first stop that you would make as a homeless person. They're like the group that organizes the rest of the services available. And then Adam Murphy is in charge of the homeless resources through the Lafayette, I guess, city government. So those were the two people I worked with. And one thing that Jennifer outlined that was something that they desperately needed that didn't really seem apparent that it would be relevant is a map of the different services that they have available that would be easy for people who are homeless to use to figure out where they need to go to get these services. I noticed that most of the information you need regarding this is available online, like really easy. However, a lot of the people that were in a scenario where they might be homeless had trouble accessing this information online. So that was the whole, I guess, reasoning behind the project. And as a result, I've created 3 different maps for LTHC homeless services. I guess I'll just hold them up to show. This is the first one. You can see it, sort of. This is the greater Lafayette area, and these are just 5 of the different service areas on the map. And bright red dots, easy to access if you were actually here looking at it, that they can hand this map out to people who are homeless and say, here's where you are, and here are the services that we suggest you use, and here's how to get there. And it would make it much easier than them having an address and trying to figure out where that address is, etc. Just, well, you can imagine how much easier it is to have a map as opposed to just a bunch of numbers. However, LTHC also has some services specifically for more permanent residencies, and they didn't have any documentation on where these were as well. They actually have residencies both in the greater Lafayette area as well as West Lafayette. And so I also made separate maps just for these, which again look very similar and are probably hard to read online, but I guess a PDF would be easier. Again, both of greater Lafayette and of the West Lafayette area, just so that any of the people who they work with that would be interested in, I guess, either living in these places or was assigned to live in these places would be able to find them relatively easily. And hopefully that would alleviate a little bit of the stress that you might have as someone who is homeless trying to find a place to live. And along with this, I also did 2 service activities. They were interesting, actually. Both of them were working on projects for the residents. Oh, somebody's talking.
Come on there.
Back. That's okay.
Yeah, that's my mom.
Oh, okay. No worries. But yeah, both of these
Come on there.
were for LTHC, but working with homeless people
Come on there.
as well as homeless people on some of their residencies.
Come on, little girl.
More or less, I did yard work with a group of people who had just recently, I guess, moved into one of their more extended stay residencies. And it was interesting to work with them, not only to, of course, help out with the places that they lived, but also to, I guess, get an idea of how they took pride in having a place they could call their own. And it was, I guess, nice in this case to see that when they, I guess, moved into these places, they also started to take some of the responsibility for caring for it. And so that I learned a lot from, and I thought was very beneficial. But yeah, that pretty much covers all of my experiences so far. One of you guys would like to share, go for it.
I'll go. So mine was similar in some ways, different in others. I too made I found locations in Kankakee, the closest urban area to me. There was 2 homeless shelters. I have a document. Mine's not printed out, but I have a document with their contact information, the address, and one of the places that was a place that I would end up going and visiting, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. But I got there a person to talk to there. The other place, I just got a phone number for the place. But then I also found information for free bus services in the area. So that they homeless people or whoever needs assistance, so if it's in the heat of summer or dead of winter, they could ride a bus and maybe help make a huge difference in getting somewhere to spend the night or how much time they may need there. So I have that was similar in that way. And then when I went and visited, talked to Jeff Schmidt the first time, went there. They didn't, they don't want to just let a teenager, or not teenager anymore, but just high school or college kid go do anything. So they they have you help food when they serve food, and then get the opportunity, you can go interact with ones that stick around afterwards and stuff, and visit with them, and don't get into too many deep conversations, but just talk about how they're doing, what their goals are, different stuff, what their plans are, and you can definitely, some are very ambitious and are trying to work hard, and then you got others that just kind of want to just survive and advance essentially, and just they'll keep using it, but they don't have all the ambition that others do. But it was just very eye-opening for me to go there and see the people. I knew that there was homeless people in Kankakee, but never would have imagined it was that extensive, and not like overly extensive, but just that many people. And so I've never had to be around that my whole life, so it's just kind of interesting to see something, a new perspective. So
Okay. Yeah, and that was a good point with the whole bus service idea. I'd only focused on walking, but I guess that's equally as relevant and definitely would be useful in the winter. So that was a good idea. Cool. Well, Henry.
Yeah, I can share mine. So I pretty much did another handout thing. I also looked at bus routes in West Lafayette. I don't have mine printed out as well, but I looked at bus routes as well as other modes of transportation, because I know for specific services in West Lafayette they have kind of van services that can go around picking people up and dropping them off at specific areas. And so I looked at that and kind of mapped it out a little bit to look at the greater Lafayette area specifically as far as services for homeless people and stuff like that. Then I also volunteered with 2 organizations within the West Lafayette area. So I noticed on your list you had both Food Finders and Lafayette Urban Ministry. I got to be a part of those and kind of experience directly some of the work that they do, and a little bit of the volunteering aspect of what they do, as far as Food Finders giving people an option to eat and to make sure that they have food for the rest of the week at a pretty good low cost for them. And then Lafayette Urban Ministry, for specifically during the summer, I think they just provide meals. That's what I got to experience. But then over the winter, providing beds for people. I know they have a bunch of bunks and cabins inside, and making sure that nobody that really needs to be is outside during the winter. So those were a little bit of what I did as far as my service learning.
Okay, great. So do you guys have any assumptions going into this that were just completely proven wrong or confirmed? Anything?
I think one of the biggest things for me is you look at a lot of homeless people, or at least in the Lafayette area, and you kind of assume that, I don't want to say you have negative presumptions about them, about how they got there, but one of the earliest things for me, especially working with Lafayette Urban Ministry, was kind of seeing the variety of homeless people that come through there. So, you have certain people, like older ones that, might have just lost their job and don't really have a lot of qualifications to get back in the workforce. And so they're just kind of stuck in a little limbo state where they don't really have the direct opportunities to get a job. But then, you see other people that are, relatively older than you, or like a couple years older than you, stuck in this situation. And it just kind of makes you experience and realize the kind of broadness that the problem of homelessness is. I think that was disproved for me.
Okay.
Mine was similar, and I alluded to it a little bit earlier. I mean, it's probably mean of me to say, but I could fairly say I probably had a negative connotation of homeless people before. I always just kind of thought, most probably put themselves in this situation through a number of different things, drug use, not working hard, whatever it may be, and kind of always just had a presumption that many of them didn't have any desire to get away from the homeless life. But after the activity, going there and visiting with some, said, there is some people that is just the reality. They they gotta get clean and figure out other parts of their life, and then maybe they can get down there. But at this time they don't even have really any desire to do so. And then you got others that are they don't have a ton of qualifications for jobs, so it's hard to find jobs. Job market isn't great. It's not awful, but they're trying and they're doing their best, but it's just for them, they think of it more temporary than others. And so I guess I wouldn't say anything is disproven or confirmed really. It's sort of just, open eyes that, it's not just like into one hole, there's different, everyone's there for different reasons, and some are, for lack of better words, better than others as far as wanting to get out and actually do something with their life.
Okay. Nice. Yeah. Well, one thing I noticed, and it was, I guess, an assumption I had that Adam Murphy at the city government was more or less proved wrong. Apparently, I'd always sort of assumed that a lot of the homeless population, at least in northern Indiana and the West Lafayette area, was honestly people who had moved south from Chicago. And it was probably the wrong impression, but at that point, my initial thought was, well, is this Lafayette's issue to solve, or is this Chicago's? I mean, it's a safe thing to think, I guess. But apparently, really, that doesn't happen very often at all. And the majority of the homeless people who venture through Lafayette are actually part of a really large circle that moves really through the Midwest. And if they aren't a part of this, then they're generally very local, and they've maybe only been homeless for a few weeks or months, and just small things happen that they just need a quick help to get back on their feet. So I guess that was really ill-conceived of me to assume that this was a larger problem from someone else, and not that something that we should, take control of as a Lafayette issue, because these are people of Lafayette that need the help. So that was definitely eye-opening.
Yeah, one of the things you mentioned about kind of how long a lot of them are homeless. One of the things, talking with some of the Lafayette Urban Ministry staff people, I was talking with them about how long, specific residents usually come through and stay. And a lot of them said that usually it's only 2 weeks or so at a maximum that they'll usually spend time within the Lafayette Urban Ministry, because a lot of them are just looking for that kind of rebound period almost in the greater Lafayette area that I experienced, where they just kind of need a little boost to get back on their feet and kind of go through a little down period, whereas they don't really see a lot of long-term members come through that just consistently spend their time there.
Okay. That makes sense, I guess, after hearing everyone else's info too. Interesting. Well, I guess given our experiences and the work done on the project so far, how would you guys say the experience compares to what you learned with all the research articles that we gathered? Yeah, whoever wants to share first, or I can, doesn't matter. Heck, I'll go for it.
Yeah.
I guess one thing I noticed, and it was probably because I chose the research article in the first place, but what I looked at initially had dealt mostly with young adults, maybe even children, and their regards and how they used homeless resources. And I assumed it would be comparable because it was in regards to the resources that were available. But with Lafayette having so many more families that are homeless, or even elderly homeless people, I found that, number one, their ability to access these resources is diminished because it's a lot harder to move a family around, or if you're elderly, it's a lot harder to move around in general than what, say, some young kid could do. And the other thing is that the services available could be completely different for families. Much easier to house a single person than it is to care for an entire family and make sure that they have some of the privacy they need, and security with small kids in the area. So that was something completely different that I should have spent more time into, and I guess specifying when I was trying to find a resource. But yeah, I don't know if you guys had any other experiences.
Yeah. So one of the things that I researched beforehand was kind of how social networks have an impact on getting out of homelessness and kind of the outlook of, improving your quality of life within being homeless. And one of the things I found pretty common throughout the Lafayette Urban Ministry area was just how, I guess, kind of close-knit of a community they had within each other, where it felt like a lot of them knew each other and they were pretty comfortable being around each other. And the paper I looked at specifically talked about how, having a positive outlook on getting out of homelessness and having, kind of a close-knit group of people that you're kind of working through this problem with is usually really beneficial as far as, setting a positive goal of, finding stability in your life. So one of the things I think was reinforced a little bit, seeing it in life with Lafayette Urban Ministry, was that effect of social circles and social networks on the problem of homelessness in Lafayette area.
Oh, okay. That makes sense. Sure.
Okay, so for me, something I looked a lot at, as I said, I've never realized what a huge issue it was. When I was first searching, I was looking up for Chicagoland area, because I can't find any numbers specifically for Kankakee because it's so small, but I am technically Chicagoland area. Just searching, and I found that there was 82,000 and then some odd change number of homeless people in Chicagoland area, which, and there's millions of people in Chicago, but that's still, that's a lot of, that's a lot of people. And, and going down, being an hour south of Chicago, and then, how I said it earlier, it was much more widespread and much more prevalent than I even realized in my area. And just, I think it kind of was confirmed to me, it just was another thing that showed how much more widespread it was, because, a lot of these people, some were actually residents of Kankakee or from the area, but a lot were sort of in a circle that go, this whole area from South Chicago down to Kankakee. And that's what they said, there probably isn't generally that many homeless people as they'll see in Kankakee that are from truly Kankakee, but, a lot are from different from yours, but being a lot closer to Chicago, a lot are from Chicago in that area. But just kind of I don't know just how that all correlated, all the homeless people there and how it affects the whole Chicagoland area, I guess. And then I guess one thing, and kind of went along with yours, I didn't really, didn't research a ton into it, but you were talking about how, there's difference, in families and all that. The shelter I visited was a men's only shelter, but they did have a woman and family shelter, which is more for just women and kids, so I don't know how that was in your guys' area, but they kind of separate that. And at least at one of the shelters back home for me, they have a shelter for, kids and women. And then, I don't know if, I think probably more for safety, and they'll maybe accommodate more because of the kids. And then there's a men's only shelter too.
Okay. Yeah, it sounded, or from what I understood, Lafayette did something similar, but in terms of the ratio, there were as many, if not more, families than there were individuals in the area.
Yeah, I agree.
I thought was interesting. Great. Well, yeah, I will say, I guess from all the information you guys have provided, I'll definitely look to focus more on, I guess, number one, short-term, I guess, services. It sounds like that's definitely an area where Lafayette needs just some quick, I guess, service to get people back on their feet, as opposed to more long-term situations. And then what was the other thing I had? Oh yeah, I also definitely will look at other forms of transportation that might be available. That was something that just didn't really cross my mind, but I guess with families and more elderly people, it'd probably be even more important in the area. But.
Yeah, I know specifically that there are a lot of great opportunities within the Lafayette area, specifically outside of just buses. And so I think that kind of making all those prevalent and known, and when I was at Lafayette Urban Ministry, they have a big it's not really like a billboard, but it's like a flyer sheet, kind of similar to some of the things you would see at Purdue, where they have a bunch of different services, and like they would have some job openings and job listings and stuff like that. And so there are a lot of really good different resources available within the Lafayette area.
Okay, yeah, I'll definitely take a look then, see if I can find that stuff. Yeah, Josh, anything else you feel the need to add?
No, I mean, I guess just you know, I hadn't originally done it, but I think you did it. You know, making a map and showing them from whether it's a different like well-known point or whatever, and showing them how to actually get to a place like this is I think that would be on top of different modes of transportation, but that could be very helpful because I've driven past the place I went and visited many times, and I really would have never known what it was in a million years. So a lot of these people might not that need to be there. They might know the general vicinity, or they might not even know where it's at. But I think making a map and show them how to exactly get there, that's a really helpful resource, because a lot of these buildings, it doesn't some of them will say, if you look closely, they'll have like something on their doors or something, but you never know where it was. So having a map to show them exactly how to get there, rather than just having them wandering around a whole town or city looking for a place, I think that's a really good resource for them.
Okay, yeah, definitely. Well, of course, I agree. I made one, but yeah, definitely makes sense though. Cool. Well, I think this about covers everything that we've done during the semester. And you guys have any more comments, or good to go?
Not really. The only thing I think I could say is tying a little bit about like the experiences I had back into the actual research handout. I definitely plan to look a little bit more into the family situation that you experienced a little bit, because that wasn't really at all what I had experienced at Lafayette Urban Ministry, because like I mentioned a bit earlier, a lot of it, they're just kind of short-term people coming through. And so you would just see a lot of individuals, although I guess at Food Finders, it was a lot more prevalent that I did see families coming through, but I think that's a lot more of just the nature of the organization than anything else.
Yeah, that probably did have a lot to do with who we just personally decided to work with, for sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure if I was over at Lum or Food Finders, it'd be completely different, but definitely nice to see both sides of it to understand what's going on.
Yeah, and I think it's good to get a perspective that, both sides exist as well. Yeah,
definitely. Great. Well, yeah, thanks for listening, whoever chooses to watch this video, and I hope this informed you of our project regarding homelessness in Lafayette and in general northern Indiana, it seems. So yeah, hopefully you guys learned something, and we definitely learned something as well. Thanks for your time.